All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Deep End. This is big number 62. As always, I'm joined by my main man, Mr. Gutman. And guys, by the time you're listening to this, probably, possibly, as you're listening to this right now, Ari and I, in live action, in real time, are probably running on the Las Vegas Strip right now, as this is going on, which is pretty cool, man. I'm excited to see you in a few days.
Doing our 7 to 8, maybe 9 or 10 mile run.
Maybe. We'll see how it goes. I'm open to it. Strip runs really are the best, man. It's so fun. I'm excited for it.
I'm so excited to be in Las Vegas. I'm excited to see you, man. It's literally one of those moments where I can say it's been too long.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah,
a
it
year.
has. What aside from, running, getting a good run in and hanging out a bit, what are you looking forward to most from this trip? Because I know this is a work trip for you. So like, what are you hoping to get out of this? What insights are you hoping to take away? It's a big ETF conference, so like, what are you hoping to learn from it, if anything?
Right. Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first let me say I always mix business with pleasure. Always not in that way, but but in a way in which when I travel for business, I always try to stop in various places. And so like for example, right now I'm in Malta, and in about 10 hours, 12 hours from now, I'll be in France, just for a quick layover there, and I'll board another plane and make my way to Las Vegas. Well, New York first, and then Las Vegas. But I'll be there in Las Vegas, in the next 48 hours. So yeah, by the time, like Ryan said, you all are listening to this, we'll be running by that time already. So in regards to the conference, though, the conference is exchange, and it really is where ETF issuers come to meet RIAs, and other industry professionals and leaders. I don't really have an MO in terms of learning there, but I have an MO in terms of networking. I am just a animal when it comes to networking. I talk to everybody. I didn't have like literally last year. I walked away with dozens and dozens and dozens of pictures. People were like, "Oh, I tagged on LinkedIn and all that stuff." Is So my company always likes to laugh that I am the big schmooze. So I talk to everybody, and I'm excited, man. I love talking to people. I love meeting new people, and now this go round, because it's my second go round going. It's going to be a lot of familiar faces, so that's always
Yeah.
nice, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some of those familiar faces. I will say it's always great to go to conferences, whether it's on a more professional note or just even on a personal, right, or like a FinCon, because everybody who goes to conferences, they're all jazzed up about being in person together. We're all focused on finance or whatever it is that the conference is about. So the energy is always off the charts. I'm also excited for that, and most importantly, Ron, I'm excited, man, just to get the opportunity to sit with you, in the flesh, real time, and talk big ideas and run, and just
Yeah.
this is the highlight, one of the highlights of my year.
Oh, good, man. Likewise. I'm excited to see you. Um, Speaking of big ideas, let me throw a question over to you. This is related to ETFs too. At what point? Because obviously, actually, let me backtrack a little bit, because this thought came a little bit from what you were just talking about, but it also came from a post that I saw on X recently. I think Dividendology put it up, so shout out to Dividendology. And I'm going to paraphrase it. It was a chart, like a long-term chart, showing like active and passive ETFs and their change in popularity over time. And what this chart showed was that the interest in actively managed ETFs over time has gone way, 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 way up, just like skyrocketed. So, number one, I thought that was interesting. But number two, this kind of ties into the question, at this point, at least I think all of these are ran by human beings, by actual people. At what point do you think, and I'm sure it's already happening already, you'll have to let me know, but at what point do you think these funds, these actively managed funds, start becoming managed by AI? Or is that even possible with regulations? How does all of that work? What do you think?
Well, it's certainly possible. It's already happening now. There's a company out there called FinQ.
Mm.
I know the CEO personally, and actually I interviewed him. Oh, geez, 2 years ago on Masters of the Market, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
And his name is Eldad Tamar. He's an amazing guy, brilliant mind. Before he got into ETFs and building FinQ, he was in VC. It's where he made all of his money. But brilliant, brilliant guy. And so his whole company was founded on the notion that AI will take over Wall Street. And I remember in that interview asking him outright, you banging on Wall Street's doors with AI, I'm sure they're not fond of it. And his response was something along the lines of, oh no, they hate me. Because, there's going to be a reluctance to change anything in any industry. So actually, Ryan, I was at the airport flying to Malta, and my flight got delayed. Somebody else's flight got delayed, and like the big schmooze, right, is here. So
Yeah,
I
I was
was
actually, I forgot to ask you about this. I know where you're going. I forgot to ask you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so the guy ahead of me, I just started talking to him, and both
Yeah.
of our flights were delayed. He was going to Greece, and I was going to at that point in time I was going to Larnaca, Cyprus, and um, but anyways, our flights were delayed, so we were talking. We got coffee. We spoke, 2.5, 3 hours about
Wow.
everything under the sun. And it turns out, though, he is the CEO of an AI company. So we had a really fascinating conversation about AI as well. I voiced like I did last week, my
You let him have it.
fears about weakness, in society. And he, look, the thing is, I'm not voicing anything irrational. I'm voicing something that's very real and I think pertinent for our times because he does agree that people are using it not as support, but as a primary mechanism to basically do nothing. And that is an issue. It's meant to be supportive, but he also shared this, which was interesting because I brought up Elon Musk and the robots and how it's just like robots are going to be doing all these simple tasks. And he was like, "Well, look, there's a technology that's already out there now for robots to start performing surgeries, but they're
Yeah.
not doing like open heart surgeries right now. They're doing very basic surgeries. And behind the robots, there's always a doctor, just in case." And so I think, in regards to AI, like really taking over, there's always going to be a little bit of a human touch with a kill switch. Okay. But even having a robot at home, right? You can probably swing a bat at the thing if something ever happens and it's over, or maybe not. Maybe it takes the bat from you. I don't know, but we'll see, right? What LDAD and FinQ is all about is passivity in terms of the ETFs. They got two right now. They're already launched. You can actually buy these ETFs now, fully managed by AI. And the premise, even when I interviewed Eldad, he went over this with me, and I was already at that point in time saying, "Well, I don't know," and now it's a thing. So um, these ETFs managed by AI, which are truly passive now, um, takes a look every single day, hour by hour, like literally moment by moment, everything that's going on. There's no way human eyes can do this much research and calculations. It's all based on numbers, right? Calculations, numbers, algorithms. There's no way a human can get all of that research in on dozens and dozens of companies and then make the decisive decisions to kick out certain companies based on the algorithms and keep certain ones and rotations and just everything. It's all happening too fast for a human. Now I'm interested to see they just launched these two ETFs. last week. I actually have a call with their team this upcoming week. So I'll have more information, insights and information. But yeah, they've already launched. I'll put it that way. So AI is already going to start to take over these things. I think it will be slow. This, by the way, the CEO I met at the airport also shared the reluctance in the medical field, because if the robots keep taking over these surgeries, which to his point, he said, when robots start taking over, these minuscule surgeries, it allows for doctors and researchers to put the emphasis on solving bigger problems, finding more cures, cancer, right? And so like let's cut out doing these, little like stitching surgeries, or these, again, nothing crazy, minuscule surgeries we're talking about, and
Yeah.
allow the doctors to start doing more research on what really needs to be figured out. But I go back to my dishes, Ryan. I think this is important. I think this is
It
important, man.
always goes back to the dishes. Like in Ari's mind, the invention of
I'm
the
not letting Ryan
dishwasher
off the hook.
was the end of civilization as we know it. So, in terms of healthcare, it's interesting. I had this book that was sent to me a while back that's just been sitting on my desk, part of my reading list. It's called A Giant Leap by a guy named Robert Wachter, I think, maybe Wachter, Wachter. But it's all about how AI is transforming healthcare and what it means for the future of healthcare and stuff. I haven't read it yet, but I'm really excited to, because I'm sure it gets into a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. Um, but yeah, it's crazy times, that's for sure. So you said he was reluctant about its potential impacts on healthcare.
No, he was saying the medical industry has
Oh,
reluctance to bring in AI and robots at this point, because it's going to take their job, and
uh
like
huh,
everybody else, everybody's fearful of the job being taken over,
yeah,
and it's just hard to say, like, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, what will society look like? That's the big question.
yeah.
I don't think in the next 6 months to a year everybody's going to be out of a job, but I think in the next 10 to 15 years it's going to be very interesting of what the world will look like. Hence why I'm actually trying to do, this wealth acceleration much
Mhm.
quicker, much quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it brings up, and I wanted to talk about this last week, but we ran out of time. So I'm glad that we're getting back into this conversation again. There was this, I think Elon Musk said something recently, and this is like old news at this point. So sorry, guys, but Elon Musk said sometime recently that within the next 10 or 15 years, in the future or whatever, because of AI, basically saving for retirement is a waste of time. Did you hear, and I'm paraphrasing, but did you hear that?
I didn't hear that directly, but I can feel like I can safely understand where he's coming from with that point. And also I have his voice in my head saying that because it coincides with an interview I watched with Elon Musk talking about robotics.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that interview too. He talked about how within maybe 5 or 6 years, that's when you'll see the robot starting to do surgeries and some of those high level tasks. That one.
Yeah, and then that he discusses, I think, in greater detail there how like the world will look a little bit more like communism across the board because the robots do the work, and so there's a wealth distribution where you kind of just get like a sum, and that's like that's your income because
Yeah.
robots are going to be doing everything else.
But then what? So then, what would that mean? Do you think for saving for retirement? I mean, would you even be? I guess it depends on a lot of different factors. But would you even be allowed to invest in a brokerage account or a Roth IRA? Would those things even exist anymore? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, again, there's really no need for any of this stuff. If that's the world, then the direction we're heading in. Think about it. If robots are doing everything and humans at this point are just like la di da dying around, um, and because how are you going to get people to work? They don't need to
Yeah.
work, and why would they work if you're going to get paid a sum anyways? And robots are doing everything else. Like, what are they like? What are you going to make up a job for them?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, yeah, just go do this, right? And it's like, no, I'll just take the sum of money. I mean, call it like welfare, right? Like that's the deal.
Yeah.
Um, the welfare system is really not designed to get people back on their feet. It completely cripples people.
You
And
sent me a
so,
you sent me a podcast recently that talked a lot about this.
yeah, that one also with the historian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just look. I I am so mixed about the future of AI and robotics because I'm just a big believer of like I'll give you a good example, man. Um, of course, I'm a sunrise guy, and I was out, there. Malta is absolutely beautiful, by the way, for anybody who hasn't been and wants to check it out. I actually chose to come to Malta because it has some of the most beautiful sunrises. And so, every morning I've been going to a different spot to watch the sunrise. And this morning, man, I like literally was sitting out there watching the sunrise, and I just was overwhelmed by like grace and gratitude. And like just saying to myself, like, I am so blessed, man. Like on a real note, I am so blessed to have had the entire journey that I've had, and then have the opportunities that I have, and like self discovery and being in love with the work that I do. And I think that's available for everybody. I just don't think anybody really searches for it. I took a lot of risks to get to where I am today. My first couple of out of school, when I got out of college, I got a job in sales. I didn't like what I did. I actually worked in tech sales initially. I was in technology and recruiting service sales. I hated that. And then I left that and I got into ad sales, and I enjoyed my time in ad sales, but that still wasn't me. But everybody in my and circle at that point in time, inclusive of like my father, had said, don't jump careers just to jump. And, I was like, why the hell not? If I'm not happy doing what I want to do every single day, then what's the point? And so I left, and I wasn't there for like a couple months. I mean, I did my time there. I was at, I worked at Yelp for a year and a half, 2 years or whatever it was. Um, and I left. I got into fundraising. I did that for 8 months. I did a hell of a job for the company I was doing the fundraising for. I was in New Jersey chapter, raised $3 million, realized that none of that was a cut in my pocket at all, and said, well, that's not for me, and then I got into real estate, so, but when I'm sharing this, because I jumped and I jumped and I jumped, and I really, when I was jumping, I was discovering myself.
Yeah.
But in a world where robots are doing everything, you can't really discover yourself. You're not even going to know yourself, because
Is that
there's no need to explore yourself. There's no need
got it?
to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am this morning, man, super grateful, super grateful that the ups and the downs of life, like it's all a gift, man. It's all a gift.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and I guess you don't realize it until you have the benefit of hindsight, but being able to go through that trial and error is a really important part of the process. I've had pretty similar conversations with my little brother recently. He's 19 years old, and he's a real go-getter. Like he reminds me. I was gonna say he reminds me a lot of myself when I was his age, but I was not a go-getter at his age. It didn't really hit me till like my mid-20s. So he's ahead of where I was at his age. But he's kind of going through this too, trying to figure out the who am I, who do I want to be, what do I want to do, and he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's working really hard, and he's starting to realize, man, I'm going in so many different directions right now. I feel so scatterbrained. I don't exactly know what's right for me or what I should be doing. And I feel like he says, I guess he feels like there's just not enough time because I'm spread so thin trying to do all these different things. And I told him, first of all, that I totally understand that. And the part of it is he's excited about all of these different things. But I also told him, that's a really important part of this journey is you kind of have to try on some different hats to see which one actually fits. And the only way to really know what that is to put the hat on and go through that trial and error. There's really no substitute for that experience. And so, to your point, I guess in terms of potential like mass forced retirement, I guess is what it could potentially end up being if everyone's getting a stipend just from, the I don't know, just from AI just taking everything over and not having people not having to work. Yeah, I guess it brings up a couple of questions like at that point, how do people, I don't want to say discover themselves, but how do they figure out what their path is from there? I think people have a difficult enough time retiring normally as it is, right? We always talk about a lot of people thinking of retirement just being as this thing that you step away from, but don't often consider what you're stepping into, what you're retiring to. And that was a lot of the premise of the Retire Often book that we covered here on the channel. Um, so I guess how do people reconcile that? If you're forced into retirement at such an early age, I mean, what do you do? How do you figure out what to do from there? How do you figure out who you are? And I guess this kind of ties back to what we talked about last week too, like who you want to be, especially because a lot of us do tie a lot of our identities into our jobs or our careers. So who do you become from there? And how do you figure that
I
out?
think a lot of people already struggle with that.
Yeah.
Retirees or near
Hmm.
retirees, they're already struggling with that. And these are people who have been living for decades, and I do want to say should have figured it out by then, but they didn't. And the reason I want to say they should have figured it out by then is because I do believe fundamentally that everybody has the obligation to do soul searching. It's uncomfortable, but you have to do that. And so it's so easy to push off soul searching. One of the fastest ways to find yourself is to go travel by yourself, by the way. Like I go on my trips solo, and I'm here in Malta solo. And yeah, I do talk to a lot of people while I'm here, but I don't know anybody. I meet a lot of new people. It's a heck of a time, but at the end of the day, you retire to your hotel room. You're by yourself. You wake up, you go, I went to the sunrise by myself, and there's a lot of moments where you just are able to deeply find yourself. I had a call come in today from my brother, and temporarily they're moving, him and his wife and kid are moving to Chicago, and he's there in Chicago now already working, and his wife and kid are in Boston. So he called me this morning. He goes, man, I really miss, his wife and his kid. And I said, yeah, I hear. But like, use the time wisely. You're so used to having people there with you. It's uncomfortable to be by yourself. And I feel like that's happening to so many people, man. I am actually really lucky and fortunate for my situation right now, which is like, again, I just fundamentally believe everything happens for a reason. So, and everything's always going to work out the way that it needs to, not the way people want it to, the way that it needs to. So what I capitalize on right now is like, dude, I know myself so well. I love my situation. I will never play victim to it. And there's always something to learn. And you can always go deeper. So the amount of calls that I get, a lot of the times people will say something like that to me. I'm like, man, well, use this time wisely, Soon your wife and kid will be back with you, and you'll be fetching in the other direction, and it's like, well, I had all that time before, and it's like, so the reality is, man, just no one's ever freaking happy. And so you really have to do that soul searching work, when you're solo, and then you're still obligated to soul search even when you have the family and you have everything else. It's just such a necessity to go deep with yourself, man. in a world, and work is a big part of that, in a world where there's no real work for you to do, to go get the job, to put the blood, sweat, and tears into something. I mean, what's that whole quote with, like, when a man is bored, he'll do anything, right? It's just like he's going to get himself into trouble. I believe that to be true. I really do. I believe that to be true. And I likewise with the CEO that I was in touch with at the airport, right? He kind of said the same thing. It was just like, it could be an absolute disaster. It's not good when people have a lot of free time. We think it's good, but it turns
Yeah.
into mass pandemonium and chaos.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of become a joke, I suppose, between my wife and I. Uh, yeah, I'm very much a busybody, and I feel like these past few months, I feel like I've had a lot of days. I mean, even stretches of weeks at a time where I just feel like from the second I get up to the second I go to bed, I'm I'm just going. Like it's either work related. If it's not work related, it's being a dad or tending to the baby or whatever, or just trying to tend to the family or working out, which I can, all of these things I consider to be obligations, different kind of obligations. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I haven't felt like I've had a lot of downtime, like time where I can just sit and relax and do whatever I'm doing, reading or watching YouTube, reading stock analysis stuff, whatever I like to do, without thinking about what I have to do next. And so a couple months ago, I started working with an editor too, which really helped relieve a video editor to really help relieve a lot of that workload. And that got me back a ton of time. But what did I do with that time? Instead of using it to solve the problem that I had, I filled it with other things. I started doing other
He
things,
made more YouTube videos.
I've made more YouTube videos. Um, I've written more. I started, this is a recent development, but I started trying to like vibe code a software for myself. So I'm learning that kind of stuff. And so, the time started getting filled with these other things. And then even just yesterday, I was saying I was getting not frustrated, but starting to get a little bit stressed because, I don't know, I'd spent a couple hours working on something that I really didn't have to do. Like I just started doing a little thing and then it turned into, you know, I look up and like a couple hours had gone by. And so then I started getting a bit stressed out, like, there's just not enough time. And then my wife was like, you always do that. You always do it. Like you're just saying you don't have enough time. And then you finally get the time and then you fill that time with other things. It's just like, I don't know. And I think
She's
all of
right.
that, she is right. But I think all of that is to say that's kind of just how I'm wired. Um, because it
Man,
feels good.
we're in
Like,
the deep end. Can I ask you a deeper question there?
yeah, sure.
So I want to challenge you on, like, that's how you're wired.
That's how I think I'm wired.
Yeah, because I want to be like, man, in this instance, like when I typically sit with people and like really like work with them on certain things, like I caught that, and it's like, well,
Mm.
what do you really like when you're in that downtime? What are you really stressed about, man?
Oh, I
Like
don't
what's like the anxiety to, like, the itch to go work on something else?
I think it depends what it is it depends what I am thinking about that I should be working on at that time. Um, but I guess generally speaking in that downtime, I think that there's probably more productive things I could be doing than reading right now. Like I probably don't really need to read when I have 20 emails that I need to respond to. So I probably should be doing that instead. Or even, with this vibe coding thing, I'm thinking I mean, that's a fun thing. So I think, instead of just sitting around watching YouTube, I could be working on this thing instead, like actually getting the experience here. But I think I'm just a tinkerer. Like I like tinkering on things. I like having these little projects and learning about new things. And it doesn't have to be vibe coding. It doesn't have to be related to work. It could be even like playing the guitar. It's like, man, I feel bad. I haven't touched I've been sitting here watching YouTube and I haven't touched my guitar in like 4 days. I should be playing a little bit and getting better there. So I think it's just those kind of things. I like to make progress at things, whether it's developing skill set on the guitar or building out this vibe coding thing, which is nothing serious. It's just like, I like to take book notes. I like to read and log my notes and reflect on the quotes that I pull out. And so I'm trying to, and I have like a Notion tool that I do that in, but I'm trying to recreate that as its own kind of software thing, just for fun, just as a fun project. But it's not real stress. Like it's not like, I feel like the sky is falling when I'm sitting, reading or watching TV. I think it's just hard for me to relax sometimes. But I will say, sorry to turn this into a tangent. I will say part of that, if there is any stress, part of that probably does come from a couple of things. It probably comes from feeling like I need to be, when it is work related or whatever. It probably does come from a little bit the sense that I should be doing things to get farther along than where I'm at today. Like financially, for example, like I should be doing things that's going to put more money in my pocket that I can use to invest more and get myself and my family to financial freedom faster. I think that that's probably a continuous thought in my head, that I try to balance out with the other side of that. Like, no, things are fine. Like you're still, investing very regularly and it's getting better. You're doing more and more over time. So don't sweat it. It's all going to work out. So I balance those things, but also, especially after, I mean, we have a legit family now. It's my wife and our baby. And so I think that creates a sense of pressure that never goes away as well. And that's been an adjustment too. But I think that's also maybe part of it, feeling like whatever free time I have, I should be doing things to like continue to build up this moat around my family. So when life throws curveballs, like we're ready for whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Man, it's funny because like I totally get what you're talking about on one front there. When I'm stationary, when I'm home, like my MO is like, okay, like save, invest, scale, build, but
Yeah.
now it's like I kind of, Bill Gates always used to be like very well known for taking like a month out of the year to just go away somewhere
Yeah.
and like totally tune out the world. When I travel, that's what I do. Like I'm like, now you're catching me on like kind of vacation mode, Ari, where he's like,
And
it's
you can
all
hear it in
good,
you
man.
can hear it in your voice, man. We've got
Yeah,
we've
relax.
got Island Ari over there.
Yeah,
He's
man. Yeah, now the dial will turn up once I'm in Vegas because it's going to turn into work in Vegas,
yeah.
and then I think I'll head over to Hawaii, to be determined, or South America. But yeah, it's like this is so important for me. This time to like just, and I do it once a week, every week.
Yeah.
But like, there's for me when I leave and go on like a vacation, if you will. And yes, I do still work. I've been working while I've been in Malta, but like it's just different. Like I make sure that the time when I'm here, for example, in Malta, it is okay. Wake up, go to the sunrise. That's the mission, and then don't do anything else other than be at the sunrise. Like that is the thing I'm doing. Ever since I've turned into like a serial meditator, and for me, financial freedom is just equivalent to peace of mind. And so I even think like reaching Coast Fire, and all these things have helped me immensely,
Yeah.
immensely. And, I did the podcast. We were talking before this about that podcast I did yesterday, with memes and markets, and we talked in some great detail about even just the mind and like, man, peace of mind is the greatest gift I've ever gotten. And there's literally like once it's the classic meditation like quote as well. It's like when someone says like meditation is the act of doing nothing. No, actually meditation is the act of doing something, and that something is nothing. Like
Mm.
you're just sitting. And that is, every single day, man, I do that in the morning. I just take 20, 30 minutes to just meditate, just to sit, hear my thoughts, and really understand what's going on within me.
Yeah.
And that has become so quintessential to my day.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I think my version of that is running. I definitely get lost in my own thoughts whenever I run, especially longer distances. I always start out listening to a podcast typically, but it's not uncommon to be a couple miles in or a few miles in, and I realize I don't even know what they're talking about the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just because I'm thinking about my own stuff. At which point, then I just turn it off and just lean into that. But I do think it's important to have that time. And I will say, going back to everything that I was saying about how I feel, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I'm good. If I have those thoughts, I can very quickly like shut them down or balance that out with the other side of that, which is, yes, understand you want to be farther along than today, but you're also fine. So 95% of the time, I'm able to rein that in. But I'm also a human being, so there is that 5% of the time where things do get the best of me, just depending on whatever else is going on that day. So it's a constant work in progress, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But I also, interesting thought. Let me know what you think about this. I also think it's important to have those two opposing thoughts in your head and carry them both at the same time. Because if you don't have that sense of wanting things to be better and wanting to be farther along, if you don't have that, then all you're left with is a sense of, I guess you could use two words to describe it. One is contentment, which is good. There's a positive connotation to that word. But simultaneously, you could also say complacency, which is a negative connotation. But I don't think in this situation they're all too different. I think you could use them interchangeably. So I guess, how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, I totally get what you're talking about, first of all, because it's like earlier today, I was walking and the thought popped into my head and it was like, man, you got to be, over the 500,000 by like halfway through this year,
Yeah.
and how are you going to do that, when the market is how the market is right now?
Yeah.
And that's when the other thought crept in that was like, well, that's out of your control, and
Mm.
that put me back into place because it was like, it's not necessarily out of my control, right? I can go work 10x harder. I can make more money. There are other things that I can do to get to that. The question is, do I want to? Or
Yeah.
the question is, do I just want to be patient and like realize that like things are happening and I still have a life that I get to enjoy and I want to enjoy? So it was like walking and I'm like, man, like you're good though. Like you're good. Just be in Malta right now. Like that's what you need to do. You just need to be in Malta because not to bring it to such a morbid level, but like, man, we're just all gonna die one day. Like I think about this all the time, and some people are like, oh, it's such a negative, thought. I'm like, actually, it makes me really happy that I won't live forever because it makes my days super sweet, and I'm very appreciative of each and every day. And I just don't think a lot of people are even, when I was watching the sunrise this morning, okay, because I had posted on Instagram, I posted the picture of the sunrise and then I said a little something. But the little something that I wanted to say was, I am a billionaire. And then I was like, nah, go with something else. Because I don't think people really understand what I mean when I say that I'm a billionaire. I am so freaking grateful every moment to be alive and to be here, knowing that one day I won't be alive and I won't be here. And so how, like, the question for me is like, well, how are you living now, man? How are you living right now? It better be epic, and And so I just find myself in these moments where I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a billionaire. Like, I just, like, I'm like exploding with like gratitude and appreciation. And so that's the thought that I carry with me. It's like, yeah, you could, go get, a different job or whatever, more money or like whatever all the things are that we ever always think about. And it's like, I need to get more money. But the real question is, do you really want to? Do you really need it? Like, what's the intrinsic thing that's really motivating you there? Like, why do you feel that incessant need that you're not good enough and that you have to get there now, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was like, dude. Even if I had the $1 million right now, well, I would still be in Malta right now, and I'd probably like the other thought that would probably come up is like, well, you need 2 million, So it's that thing of more. And I just stop. I like to stop those thoughts immediately.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're right. The system is in place. That's what matters. The system that you've designed is in place. It's set. It's working. And now the only other element to that is time. You just need time. So the market right now is haywire. But in 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years from now, the system, because I've designed it this way, I mean, I'll be soaring. And so it's going to be okay. So enjoy freaking Malta, just like enjoy. That's how I go about it.
But the intrinsic driver, like you said, the at least in my case, the thing that causes those thoughts in the first place is not more money just for the sake of more money. The driver is for that peace of mind. And I don't know, you almost don't feel like you can fully have it until you've reached the point where all of your financial stresses are just taken care of without having to, worry about it, I suppose, or without having to work for it.
Well,
Which then,
that's like your system's already set, though, right?
yeah, the
Like that's why
system's
you're
set.
dividend investing.
Exactly.
Like that's your system. And so I just think it's really important that, like, because yes, we are humans, and so thoughts will always creep in, like always, no matter who you are. It's like the chirp that's like, you're not good enough, or like you need to get there now. But you're not responsible ever for the first thought. You're responsible for the thoughts
Yeah.
afterwards.
100%. Yeah, and you're totally right. It is all about the things you can control. And once again, like going back to what we were talking about at the start of this conversation, like that trial and error period, that experience that you get along the way, you cannot substitute it. And the only reason I think peace of mind will be obtained at financial freedom is because you had to work for it for so long and you had to be patient and you had to get yourself there. And I think that's the only way you don't squander it once you do get there, because you know what it took to get there. Now, tying this back to the conversation that we had about AI, it's hard not to think that if we find ourselves in a reality where everyone's just getting money on autopilot, they're basically being given financial freedom if they allocate their funds properly, because they haven't gone through that experience of building it up and getting themselves there on their own. A lot of that money, I would think, for a lot of people, they'll squander it. Like they won't appreciate it. And so, but then I was about to say, and so then they're not really they might even be in a worse off situation because then they have no money. But then again, it'll just come the next month and then the next month, so it's almost just like an infinite money stream. So maybe I'm wrong. Do you see where I was trying to go with that?
Yeah, for sure. What I will say is, like, socialism never works ever. It's just been proven time and time again, because the human is like literally since hunter and gatherer days, survival of the fittest. And like, they're just, you're always going to be looking around at what you could have, what you should have, what you think you deserve. And
Yeah.
it's the thought will come. That's like, well, if we're all getting the same amounts, what if I want to do double, like the hunting, or like then yes, that person should get more, you know? That's just how this cookie crumbles. There's no two ways about it. And I think that's where it would cause a big problem,
Yeah.
because there are like people like me, like, man, I want to be challenged every day. I find the satisfaction out of being challenged with something and having to put forward solutions, risking failure, but also having the opportunity to succeed.
Mm.
And I think that's just really important. And I think we will find ourselves in a very weak, we're already in my opinion, we are already there. We are already living in an incredibly weak society.
Kind of
Now,
reminds
my
me of
vision for the
oh,
future is nil. I don't think we're getting any stronger anytime soon, especially with AI. And so I think there's going to be very few people. It's going to become fewer and fewer real hunters at the table. And I think there's going to be like just a select few. Now, I don't want to say, like, when I say select few, I'm not talking about like 3 people. There's a spectrum of the world of billions of people. There's a pretty big table, and there's going to be like,
yeah.
just the people though that are ready and prepared to like and want to live and be challenged and take on risks, and like they're not going to be giving their robots the dishes, dude. No robots in my house, man. my kids will forever be doing the dishes.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be, like you said, those people who are just wired that way, I guess. Going back to what I was saying earlier, there's just some people who like to tinker and come up with projects and make things and build things. And yeah, the world definitely needs those. But all of this kind of reminds me, I was at the bank not that long ago, and I was talking with like the bank teller, and he's a big gamer. Not really a big gamer, but this guy was a big gamer. And he told me that, gaming, he said, I've always loved gaming. It's always been a lot of fun. But he said, as of late, when I'm playing online with other people, it's like all everyone does these days is just like, if he's playing NBA 2K, he said, everyone's just using cheat codes. Like, I feel like everyone I'm playing against online, all they do now is just turn on the mod to where it like auto makes every basket that they shoot. So it's like they shoot and then they never miss. And when this first came about, it's like they would at least try to make it look like they weren't cheating. They would at least try. But now he said nowadays they don't even try. Like they'll just, I don't know. And he said it stopped once just became so obvious and everyone started cheating. It just stopped being fun. Because like, what's the point of playing and playing with other people if they're just going to cheat?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is why, when it comes to the road to financial freedom, this is why I really have a problem with like the socialist mentality, because I am willing to and want to outwork people around me. Not for the sake of like you're less than me or like whatever. It's just like my natural like state is like, let's work, like let's build. And that's not everybody's natural state. I enjoy working. Like I always enjoyed working, man. Since I was a little kid, I wanted to landscape and walk dogs and like just do all these things. And I just think that it's like the mentality of like, I deserve this because I deserve it. It's like, what the hell does that even mean? So I don't think we're gonna live in a great world if everybody's getting the handouts. I think it's just gonna become incredibly weak, and we're already seeing that. Take a look at New York City right now. It's just like everybody voted in New York City for a mayor who's going to give them free stuff all day long. By the way, none of that's happening, and he's actually jacking the prices of like everything. It's hilarious to watch this. But I have my heart goes out, man, to those in New York City, because I used to live there, man. I know what it means to be a New Yorker. I know what it means to like the hustle is real in New York. You can't take the hustle out of New York, although he ran on that, and unfortunately, I think a weak culture of very young individuals, the TikTok crowd, like they cheered this stuff on. But I say this: put me in the room full of dozens and dozens and dozens of young little TikTokers, who just like don't really know the work ethic. I'll just outwork you, and you will have to kill me, in order to get me to stop. And that mentality, I think, is dead and gone, man. Like, really, I think that old die on the hill mentality. I will just outwork you. I will do it for longer, day in and day out, hour by hour, and like chop wood, carry water. I like doing it, so like the process is what I'm in love with. I don't care about the results. And that's where it's like, it's just game over, man. But this road to financial freedom, this is what makes this road so hard, because people want to get rich by Tuesday. That's not how you play this game. We're talking about getting rich by a Tuesday in the decades from now,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And then what do you do in the meantime? The process.
Yeah, the process, right? Monish, and we've probably already shared this quote, but Monish Pabrai is famous for saying, like, to be a great investor, you have to like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
And it's so true.
And I'm sadistically the guy who just likes to do that, man. I just like to sit.
I mean, to be honest, when it comes to my investments, I'm totally that way. Like, I really don't feel the need to do much with them, and it's actually been good lately, just as things have kind of come down. But I think it's nice to have that type of strategy where you don't need to, you can just sit on your hands and kick back and like not pay attention to it for a little bit if you want to. I couldn't imagine doing it a different way.
Well, that's so, yeah, man. I put out a little video on Blossom today that like wired back to my Instagram, and it was a quick video that I just wanted to say, like, statistically speaking, who are the best investors? It's not the people who are like actively trading all the time. It's not the people who have finance degrees. It's not the people who overreact. It's literally the people who could just sit. And then I brought up the classic, Fidelity study where like the people who had the best returns were either people who forgot their accounts even existed or they were dead. And so why? It's because they didn't touch it. And so just like to your point now, when I was thinking on my walk today, I was like, well, how am I going to cross that 500,000 line in the next few months? It's like, well, yeah, it's like that actually doesn't matter. The result doesn't matter. It's just your process right now. So keep doubling down your positions and you'll be fine, man. Who cares if I don't hit the 500,000, in 2 or 3 months from now? I'll for sure have it by the end of the year if the market, skyrockets back to where it was. And so that is the deal, right? It's just like you be forward thinking enough to realize that on these downswings, that's your opportunity right now. And then it's just a waiting game.
Let me ask you this, talking about, Instagram and TikTok and short form content and all that stuff. Do you think overall that's been a net positive for investing? Like the short form content in the finance space, the quick hits, quick content. Do you think overall that's been a good thing for investing and investors consuming that content?
No, but I don't really, both you and I know a ton of people who are on, TikTok and Instagram with quick content. And I just think, here's what I'm going to say. I don't want to be too harsh, but I don't really care. None of these people, Ryan, who make quick content, at least that I've spoken to, they don't do a whole lot of reading. They're not like knee deep in books and stuff like that. And so I know that you are someone just like I am who likes to read. And I think it's interesting that the difference of like our makeup, I almost want to say, is like longer form content people typically enjoy doing thorough research. I feel that quick content, these like short bursts of the dopamine type of content, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, they want the quick fix of having the clout. They want the quick fix of, just Like, how do I get this out there as quick as possible?
Yeah.
And
It's a structural issue. It doesn't lend itself to a lot of context and nuance. And
yeah, I mean,
I say
try to go
that like
deep,
as someone
really
who
deep with
makes
these people on
yeah,
topics.
I say that as someone who does make short form content. If I put out a video talking about a stock that's down and my position in it, I mean, I've got 60 seconds to do so. Um, I mean, really less when you think about it. As time goes on, yes, you can post some longer stuff on these short form platforms, but I mean, people are looking to get in and out with this content, so you really have to compress it as much as possible and not waste time, or you'll lose people. And
Well, think
so
about this, man. On Instagram
structurally,
and the
yeah, structurally it just doesn't lend itself to offering that context, which could be not great. So sorry, go ahead.
on the Instagram analytics, if I'm not mistaken, it says like it gives you it gives you insight on like who watched past the first 3 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just picture that for a quick second, you know? It's telling you that your video wasn't good because someone didn't watch it for longer than 3 seconds.
Hmm.
Where is people's attention span these days? Are you looking for like dopamine hits or are you looking for knowledge bites? You know,
It's the
it's like, what are you actually looking for?
it's the dopamine hits, and that's part of the problem too, because when it comes to creating short form content, the most important piece is the hook. You have to really think long and hard about what you're going to say to hook people in and keep them from continuing to scroll past your content. And to do that, there's a certain structure that you have to follow. There's a type of you basically just have to do something that's going to stop people in their tracks, and inherently that's going to be something like outlandish. And investing, long-term investing, or I guess I don't know, I'm hesitant to say proper investing, but that's probably the best way to put it. It's not really outlandish. It's not crazy. It's not
Just
like
imagine
move
Warren
fast and
Buffett,
break things
Ryan. Imagine Warren Buffett for a second.
as a
You know,
TikToker.
like, yeah, like it'd be ridiculous. Like he would just tell you right off the bat that this is stupid and you can't learn how to invest like this. And
Yeah.
I know people who do this, you know, might beg to differ, but like if we're really being honest with ourselves, like even just think about you creating those videos for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever it is, like you want to say like, you know, Zoetis is down, you know, but how much are you really saying in that 30 seconds? The company name, the ticker, Zoetis is down by X amount. You know, it pays this dividend. Time's up. so, so what did you really give someone? Just Zoetis is down, you know, and they might go buy it, you know, from there instead of like really diving into it.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. And so I think with that said, in trying to decipher between signal and noise, because there's a lot of noise, not just on short form content, but even like articles and news articles and written stuff as well. There's a lot of noise. So I think, you have to consider all short form content, like even mine for sure, as just noise. And that's not really the nicest thing to say about my own videos. But yeah, obviously you shouldn't base your entire investment thesis on any any one single piece of content, but certainly not like short form content. Just take it as something quick and digestible that maybe gives you a potential idea to think about. But maybe even then, if
I
you're
just
only
think the
talking about
whole
something
thing
for
is so silly, man. It's like you got to have, you know, the spooky background music. This, you know, it stocks down, you know, and some people in 30 to 60 seconds will give you three companies, you know, or multiple companies here.
oh, I do that.
And then it's like the dark and dreary, you know, music and then the hook, you know. Did you know or like what I don't even know some of these hooks or whatever. I just
You're
think it's so
not gonna
stupid,
believe
man.
this.
Yes, yeah, there you go. You're never going to believe this ever in a million years that these three stocks can make you a millionaire. You know, and these
What,
people are
dude?
like, "Oh my god."
Well, you know what's crazy, man? I was talking to my friend Logan about this the other day on the phone. Um, I think we went through a really interesting time, even on YouTube in the long form space, There was a trending like title structure. I still see it get floated around. I still see it today, actually. But people were making videos with the title something along the lines of like very outlandish. You guys have seen it, like $50 into stock XYZ will retire you tomorrow, or $50 in stock XYZ will you can quit your job or something like that. You can quit your job if you invest $50 into stock XYZ. And it's like that's not good either.
None of this stuff is good, man. Influencers are scary people, and I just, when we come on here and, just talk, like I don't really consider myself on the deep end or even masters of the market. It's a similar format, just their conversations.
Yeah.
We are literally sitting together virtually, or when I'm on masters of the market, sitting with someone else virtually, having a conversation. That to me is not like, oh, he's an influencer. You're having the opportunity to really sit in on a conversation Ryan and I were going to have anyways. We're just having conversation. We're airing it. I think an influencer is more someone along the lines of like, do this, buy this, like here's what I think about this, and that's then where it gets really dicey again, because it's, whether it's short or long format, I just think people are throwing things out there for the most part, and they're not doing enough. Like, dude, I don't know, man. And I just understanding that, like, where I'm at these days, and really understanding regulation for both advisors and brokers, and I do think there needs to be more accountability for creators, for sure.
In the finance space or broadly speaking.
In the finance space, because that's you are putting yourself out there in front of people. Now, I think the way that YouTube does it, by the way, is wrong. I had offered a few times when I was put into YouTube jail to sit with their team and really talk about like what are the financial, and it was actually pretty interesting. I wanted to talk to their team about what the financial regulations actually are and how their policies at YouTube suck because they're not even aligned with, like, for example, SEC reg. And so there should be some type of alignment there. There should be someone who's going to police on YouTube to at least the standards of like the SEC, and not just like hogwash whatever YouTube thinks is acceptable or not acceptable. But that's another story for another time. I'll say this. I think that creators should be held accountable for certain things that they say. I don't think you should just be able to say anything you flipping want and kind of get away with it. I don't think you should be able to have a sponsored video without saying that you're sponsored by an ETF firm or whatever company. There are things that I think are imperative, man, to
So
be
like
said.
what's the line?
Insane.
Like give me an example of something that crosses the line. You mentioned ETF sponsorships. I think that one's pretty well, I actually don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to disclose in any video, no matter the niche, if you are being compensated by a company to promote their product in your video. So like that's pretty much already standard across the board. But you're saying that
What
still
I'm
gets
saying though is that there are still creators right now that are they're creating content. Well, let me put it like this. How would you know for sure if a company is paying someone?
yeah, I mean really the only way that you would know is if it's explicitly stated in the video somewhere.
Right.
Hmm.
Now, if I don't say it, but I just say, XYZ, fund is pretty hot. Take a look at this. And then I go over a couple of key points.
Yeah.
I satisfy, the team that hired me to promote the fund. It may look like it's coming directly from me, that I'm looking into it, that I think it's attractive, that I think it's an interesting fund.
Hmm.
But I don't have to click that YouTube checkbox that says this is a sponsored content, man.
I know, but in that case, you're already going against YouTube's guidelines because you are required to disclose that. So if you're not doing it, then you're already doing something that
Right.
crosses a
So
line. Yeah.
here, I'll give you the cold case. I will the real example here of like, so you'll be watching someone's video and they start saying things like, again, like you just this fund will retire you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
$10,000 in this fund will generate X amount of passive income and retire you by 35. Like something like
Yeah.
that. Or when people just like, I think there should be like even some requirements of like, hey, just saying some of the metrics, like really important to just say certain metrics here instead of just going over like here's a hot, ETF or here's a hot stock or whatever it is. You have to provide some real information on it instead of just being like, this is a hot stock,
Right.
here's how much it's up by in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, I'm thinking back to, excuse me, I'm thinking back to like my monthly deeply discounted stocks to buy videos. And I think about the structure of those videos and the type of information that's in those videos. And some of it is, it's a balance of two different things. It's like hard numbers and information, share price, financial information, dividend stats, that kind of stuff. It's that paired with my own personal interpretation of what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking. So it's like it's hard data with original, hopefully, analysis. And I think when it comes to the analysis side, that's when it could potentially get a bit dicey. And I really think it depends on how you word the things that you're saying. If you come out and outright say this is the best stock to buy, or this is, this one's gonna 10x in 5 years, or if you make absolute claims about an unknowable future, I think any sort of doing that crosses a line. However, I think and this is true even like off camera too, I think you should think this way internally. I think you should speak this way in conversation with anyone. When it comes to particular types of stocks or anything related to investing, you should do whatever you can to not speak in absolutes. So like if I'm talking about a stock, I try to word it in a way that comes across as like, to me, this seems that way. To me, it seems like it's that way. I really think that those semantics are important. Um, because it's not certain. Like there's no way that you can be certain about things. And so if I was talking to you off camera, like I should talk that way. If I'm just looking at information myself, oh, this seems that way. That's how I should think about it internally as well. But I think that's one thing that should be, I don't want to say policed more, but that's something everyone would be better off being more mindful of, is just less absolutes, more attention paid to the semantics of how you're
Well,
speaking.
you'll be happy to know that you're actually touching upon some regulation right now. That's real regulation dropped by FINRA and the SEC, is that you can't speak in absolutes because that's you're wrong. You don't know.
Right.
So even when you're sitting with a client, if an advisor's sitting with a client, they cannot look at their client and say this stock will 2x or 3x in 3 weeks. They can't, because it's impossible to know. Now, what's really interesting to talk about, I feel like at this point, because of what we're already alluding to, which is impossible to know the future. What do you think about all this poly market stuff?
Here, let me go get my bucket because I need to throw up real quick. It's interesting. It seemed inevitable, right? Like, it's just I mean, I feel like it's widely accepted that at this point, It's just gambling. It's really no different than gambling. If there's an argument against that claim, and I think I can speak in an absolute there. Like it is this. It is speculating. How about that? That's a more fair word. It is straight speculation,
It
which
seems to me like it's
seems
speculation.
similar to gambling. Um, and whatever. Like at the end of the day, it's not the healthiest thing to do with your money. Like gambling in itself is not either. Sports betting is not like the best thing to do with your money. I think though, kind of like eating a Big Mac or going getting an Out burger or eating pizza. It's like every once in a while, if you want to partake in that type of stuff, it's not going to be the end of the world. People can really get into financial trouble with it for sure, and I think we absolutely will see people's financial lives get wrecked because of prediction markets. So I think just like anything else, even with investing in stocks, you have to be responsible. Um, but what's interesting to me about prediction markets is that it's there's a very close association to like fintech companies and financial companies. Like Robinhood has their own prediction market platform. I just saw today Yahoo Finance was going to be publishing information on prediction markets. So I'd be lying if I said that didn't like perturb me a little bit. I think that's strange. I don't really like that association. I think I think we've worked so hard to try and disassociate investing in stocks and building wealth through this. I think we've worked hard to try and dissociate that from gambling. And I think that the prediction markets and how some of these companies are behaving towards it is going like it totally ruining that work. It's just making that association even closer. And I don't like that.
I think people are getting bored. That's like why this is getting hot. Because people
Totally.
are getting really bored, man. And like, any little thing can happen in the world, and it's an outrage. It immediately turns into an outrage. Why? Because people are bored. This is what happens when you give everybody a sum of money. People get really freaking bored. They have a lot of time on their hands. And so here's where we get that, love for predictive markets. And, to the point that you made, it's like, hey man, I'll be in Vegas in a week and I'm not going to gamble. I'm not going to play slots. I'm not going to any table. I don't ever gamble. Why? Because gambling is gambling. I'm not in the business of trying to lose money ever. Ever. And so why would if I know the odds are stacked against me, why would I want to gamble?
Yeah, I
Ever.
think I think in terms of like coming to Vegas and doing it, it's almost, especially if it's your first time, it's kind of a novelty. It's like when in Rome. But I think for some people, it's an escapism, it's a distraction, kind of in the same way that watching TV or playing video games might be. However, there's like financial risk attached to it, and that's a whole nother thing too. People obviously love the allure of winning the lottery or doing something that's going to result in putting a little bit in to get a lot out. And I watched
Well,
this
this
guy.
this
Oh, go ahead.
just real quick. This is why I want to say this because it's like I don't know, Ryan, if a lot of people actually really want to get rich.
No.
I think a lot of people want to have fun. That's different. A lot of
Yeah.
people just want to have a fun party lifestyle and la di da da. I want to be wealthy to do things in this world, certain things in this world, I'm like really really passionate about. But I think most people just want to have fun. So watch paint dry or play money in the predictive markets. It's a no-brainer. People go to the predictive markets. I always say this. Everybody always talks about Warren Buffett, but they never actually invest like him. Why? Because Warren Buffett's investment style is so flipping boring. you know?
Yeah.
People want fast cash action now. Let's have fun. Got to be rich by Tuesday. So they're going to take a bigger risk, a foolish risk in predictive markets
Yeah.
versus a way that's pretty darn near 100% returns. if you just invest in high quality, investments and stay the course.
Yeah. No, the odds are certainly in your favor over a long period of time in the stock market. But, you know, you're never going to completely eliminate the draw to prediction markets or gambling or what have you. It's never going to go away because it is something that's deeply rooted in human nature. And, you know, the small percentage of people that actually do hit it big with some of these things, like those people will always be shoved in our faces. Like we're always going to be shown people who actually have gotten insanely rich very quickly doing some of these things. Like I was about to say a few moments ago, there's this guy that I watch here in Las Vegas, one of the Las Vegas creators. His name's Pompsy. Really love his videos. He does great videos, but he also has a slots channel where him and his wife, they just play slots. And the other day they posted something on YouTube or Instagram or something where they hit a jackpot. They won $56,000 off of like maybe $100 bet, something incredibly small. And these companies are incentivized as much as they can to show us those success stories. It's a very, 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 very small minority of people that actually do get that or do hit it big like that. But the fact that some even exist makes you think like it could be me. It could potentially be me. It's someday like my time is going to come.
Well, you wouldn't be wrong in saying it could be you.
Right, semantics.
The better question is how likely is it to be you?
Exactly. And it's you're so right. It is a you know we're not very good at statistics. That's what I'll say. We're not very good with the statistics.
Because
But it's interesting
statistics go
because
against our desires. That's why.
yeah.
Think about, we were just talking about the poor Charlie's almanac. I don't want to bring up Charlie Munger here, but before we jumped on, and one thing that Charlie always has been famous for is inversion. And I just think, man, like Charlie's life is hard for people to live because they simply don't want to invert. Like it's as simple as saying this. Running is good for you. Everybody should do it. Is everybody going to do it? No. They're not. Smoking is bad for you. Is like it literally kills you. Like we know that. So I'm going to make a blanket statement here and just saying, like, if you decide to smoke cigarettes, you are literally going to tar up your lungs. That's what's happening. There's no two ways about that. We know that. So why do people do it? Do they think they're an exception to the rule?
No. That's a good question, I guess. Like why do people start? I understand like I suppose I understand why people keep doing it, but what makes someone start?
Because,
I
well,
don't really have any good insight on
the
that.
starting could be, maybe it's the peer pressure idea, the I want to be cool idea, the it's a stress reliever, and so I've heard, so let me do it idea, like all of that,
Mm.
right? But here's the real kicker to this. They're always using the could it happen to me? Nah, it's not going to happen to me.
Mm.
But what are the odds of you getting cancer from smoking? Like, I always just used to, my dad always used to say this to me a lot. He's like, it's about likelihoods. So you can ride your bike without a helmet. But what are the odds that if you fell off the bike and cracked your head or hit your head, that your head would crack? And so I was always like, yeah, whatever, right? Until my uncle one day was riding his bike and he turned the corner and he flew off the bike and cracked his head. And then it was like, oh, like it does actually appear that if you fall off the bike, like you can really injure yourself. So it's just like, don't be stupid, man. That's, and so
Yeah.
what are the odds? So you get to the predictive markets. what are the odds that you actually, one, will accurately predict the future, and two, will win, or take home that return? Significantly less than you just finding a ridiculously high quality company and just sitting back and relaxing. You will have to wait some time, but it's almost a guarantee.
Yeah. Or even just S&P and chill. Like you don't even have to think about it.
But that's boring, and that's not what people want.
Yeah, that's
That's
the
why I'm making the case
yeah.
that people actually don't want to be rich. They just want to have fun.
Mhm.
Dude, being rich is
Yeah.
like, it's hard, man. When I meet people, I like, man, take my situation right now. I didn't just get here because like it was handed to me. I worked my tail off for Coast Fire, and I'm going to work my tail off to get to fire.
I was wondering what happened to your tail. At least you still have that club foot though.
Yeah, yeah, there we go, man. And especially after the marathon.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, dude, my toes are beat after the marathon. But let me let me say this, dude. I just it's people always resort to like the whole, oh, like he must have had it easy. He was given money. He never really worked a real job in his whole life. I love those comments, man. I've seen them sometimes here in the deep end. Oh, he's never worked a real job. It's like, you don't. First of all, you don't know that. How do you know what I did or didn't do? And second of all, um, I worked, man. I worked hard. I sacrificed the dinners, the going outs, all that other stuff, so that I can spend my money the way that I want to when I'm in Malta or on my vacations. And I get to enjoy my luxury hotels, my luxury breakfasts while I'm here. And so, it's a matter of how you want to go about this whole life. Where do you really want to spend your money? I really want to keep traveling the way that I travel. That requires me to put in heavy sacrifices and put in a lot of work when I'm, stationary. And I just think that's really important. So I do want to be rich. So I'm going to make all the sacrifices to get there. I'm not going to play predictive markets to try to get rich. That's stupid.
It all comes back, I suppose, to one's appetite for risk, or rather, what they think is their appetite for risk. I think part of the problem when it comes to these predictive markets and also certain types of investing in stocks, I think a lot of people have a tendency to overestimate how much risk they can actually tolerate. Kind of like your uncle on the bike. Like he thought he was going to be fine, but he had to learn the hard way that maybe it's a good idea to to wear a helmet. And I think when it comes to how we allocate our finances in trying to multiply the money that we have, I think that's a lesson that we have to learn the hard way a lot of times. I think unfortunately for people to stop, doing predictive markets, they'll have to get burned really bad. Um, Probably the same thing with irresponsible types of stock investing as well. There are exceptions to that, sure, but I just think that's kind of the general rule of thumb.
Well, you do have to make that distinction between risk and volatility, right?
Right.
Like predictive markets, just a risk.
It's just a risk. There's no volatility.
The market, there's volatility. Like the market, in my opinion, if you have good companies or good ETFs, like there's no risk. It's just volatility.
Yeah.
Predictive markets is stupid to me because that's just risk. Going to Vegas, in my opinion, is the biggest waste of money ever. If you're gonna play, it's okay to want to do it and have fun. If that's your intended goal, to go to Vegas to gamble because you want to have fun, you've allocated like $2,000 or whatever amount to go do that. I
Yeah.
still think it's stupid, but whatever. People want to go have fun that way. Go do it. Um, I've been there a couple times now, and I just you'll never catch me at a slot machine or gambling or anything. Why would I do that?
Yeah, dude, it does not tempt me at all either. Even before I moved here, like whenever I would come visit here, it's never been that tempting to me. One of my friends though, like one of my good buddies who I would always come here with him, um, before we moved here, he's the total opposite. Big gambler, loves playing blackjack, loves playing roulette, likes poker. He just likes playing these games. And there you could, like I said,
See,
you can do it
I think that the
responsibly.
games themselves are fine, but it's the problem when you go to the casinos and you know already that
Yeah,
the house is going to win. It's the house rules. If you want to play blackjack, at with your friends, I think that's a very different blackjack than going to the casino
I agree.
to try your odds against the house.
I agree. And
You
I will
know?
say, like, in his case, at least it seems, it always starts out like it's just the guys going to have some fun at the casino, whatever. If we lose $100, we lose $100. Like, that's the price of the fun for the 5 minutes that we probably would have been doing it. But, with him, and I think with certain people, it could start out that way, but it just quickly develops into something more. Once you sit down, it's like the game changes, especially after you lose that money. Oh, I'll go take out another 100 and win it back. And then you lose that too. Okay, I'll go take out 200 more and then lose it back. And or win it back. I mean, I've seen him do that to the point where he's down like a couple $1,000, and the whole rest of your trip is ruined. It's just, it's not fun. It just, I don't know. I mean, I was gonna say, why would you subject yourself to that? But it's just such a mind f that you can't really get past sometimes. I think like you just can't walk away being down that much.
What's the stupidest thing you've spent money on, man?
Um,
That like you look back, you're just like like I could have just put that money into the market and it would have just been
yeah.
exponentially better.
I can't think of one individual thing, but there was a time in my life I was probably 21 and I had moved away from home for the first time to go to college. I went to the University of Oregon for a little bit. And prior to that, I had saved up maybe like 20 grand just from working, like in my teenage years and early, like in community college and stuff. So I had like a good chunk of change in my savings account or my checking account. In going to school and not working and being 21, it was gone like that, like so fast. And I look back on that period of time and I just think, how stupid can you be? So stupid. I lived on the corner of 13th and Patterson in Eugene, which is right off campus. And right outside of campus grounds, there were three or four different bars that the college kids would frequent. There was Taylor's, there was Rennie's, there was another one whose name I'm forgetting. But every night, closing down the bar, people would sing "Sweet Caroline." I don't remember what it was called.
Classic.
Yeah, but I lived within walking distance of all of those, and I wouldn't say like I didn't. I've never been like a huge drinker. I enjoy my margaritas and stuff every once in a while, but I've always done it casually. Even in college, it wasn't like I was going out every night to do that. But like on the weekends, sure, yeah, why not? Go out with friends, do that, and buy your friends drinks every once in a while. Like it adds up over time, as you guys all know. And so, yeah, I would say that that's probably like the stupidest way that I've ever allocated my money. But beyond that, I've been fortunate enough to be pretty responsible. Otherwise, I'd say outside of that, there isn't anything crazy that I've like blown my money on. I've always liked the idea of saving and having cash. So like that was like a rare exception in my life.
Right.
What about yourself?
There's one like so I went to Drexel University for 1 year before I transferred to Rutgers University in New Jersey. When I had transferred from Drexel to Rutgers, we were reestablishing a fraternity. I was in a fraternity. And a part of reestablishing the fraternity. I was the one who came from Drexel. The fraternity was there. They got booted from Rutgers campus before I got there, and then they were just coming back when I arrived. So I was a part of helping the fraternity, reestablish itself, grow the brotherhood there. And so one of the things that I said that we should do is go on a cruise, and I led this charge. Now I had such a great time on this cruise, Ryan. This was a spring break cruise, so you can imagine the shenanigans that was going on. Not every brother went. It was probably it was just a group of us that went, but it was the most epic spring break that I was ever on. Okay,
Island Ari was in full force.
we called it, yeah. Oh man, it was a different level. That wasn't even Island Ari, man. I'm pretty sure at one point in the Bahamas our coconuts were spiked because I look back on some of those pictures, man. My eyes are just rolled back, like it was nuts. And I don't remember drinking that much from those coconuts. So anyways, that cruise was an epic time. Okay, and then we came back. We called it the Buzz Cruise.
Mm.
And I actually had I met a girl on that cruise, and we had a fling for a while. And so, anyways, the following year, because I had such an epic time in the first go round, I led the charge again. And 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 some of the same brothers were like, "Oh, it was so good last year. We're coming again." So we do this thing again. Some new brothers came with us, and some from the old group. Ron, let me tell you, man. Some things in life you just do once and let it go. You just let it go. You can't just recreate the past. And so
Hmm.
we got in the second cruise. I had the worst cruise experience my entire life. I wanted to get off the ship. I did not. I just did not have an enjoyable time whatsoever. And I just remember being so upset that I had spent nearly $2,000 to do this cruise, and it was nothing like the first experience. Like the first experience set the bar so high, and in this cruise, I like just wanted out, man. And it wasn't getting any better day by day. And by the seventh day when we got off the ship, I was furious, that I spent that much money. I was like, what an idiot, like you could have never recreated that moment again. So I just think, yeah, I guess it was a good learning lesson, but I always think back to that and saying like how stupid, man. How stupid. To throw around so much money like that. And yeah, I think that was one of the worst investments I've ever made, man. Because then you run the numbers in your head, right? You're like, oh, that could
Yeah.
have been 2,000 right into the market and the returns, and then, like you're thinking about all that. But instead, I tried to recreate the past.
Yeah, it's
Doesn't work like that, man.
on one hand it's frustrating, right? I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, you get so much clarity, and it can be frustrating to look back at those times and just know what could have been if you were smarter, like knowing what you know now. But I don't know. That's the thing about
Well,
life,
what
right? That's the
what
thing.
was
You
funny
just
about that? I actually knew, like, before I went on that cruise again. I was like, I don't like again. I sold it to everybody like this is gonna be again cruise number two, the best one ever. We're gonna up the ante. And look, everybody who was new had a great time. The people that were on the first one with me, they were like, that one was way better. Just
what
whatever it was, the atmosphere,
it was
was
just the
better. It
energy
was
or something
different.
was better. All the
Yeah, but
stars
also
aligned on
we
the
were
first one.
younger, right?
Yeah.
Like we were sophomores, and then then we went on the second one, and we were like at the tail end of junior year, so everything changes around that. It's just like you're just a little older and like
Yeah.
kind of done with the stupid stuff that's going on. But again, man, I remember thinking like, I don't know, like I hope this tops the second. I don't know if it will top the second one, like or the first one, right? Like but you're banking on it, you know. That is the disease of more. I'll say that. You know, you need the higher high, and you need.
Yeah.
But these days, I'm just happy to report back. You know, I really do appreciate the one and dones and letting that go. You know, it was like I came to Malta. I've seen Malta. I've been to the beaches. I'm watching the sunrise. It's beautiful. I won't have this. I'm not gonna like come back to Malta. You know, I'm gonna keep traveling to other places, but I'll forever have my experiences here in Malta, and I think that's kind of, you know, a massive takeaway. You know, for me, especially from what I've learned from that cruise. But it's like, you know, you invest elsewhere. You know, and don't waste money trying to relive experiences.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You're about diversifying your experiences. That's interesting. When it
Yeah,
comes to
like you know how many people come to Vegas like every year. You
yeah,
know,
well,
like
that
they
was
just
me. That was me, and
that
that's
yeah.
that's me with Newport Beach. Like I travel that way. I'm the way that that's how I am when I travel. Yeah,
Yeah, you're like my portfolio, man. Just like two stocks.
two
Like,
stocks. But you know why it is, man? It goes back to and this is a long episode today, but it goes back to what we were talking about at the start of the conversation. I like, I would love to have a week like Bill Gates does for himself, where he just goes and parks it and just read for a period of time. So when I go on vacation, like that's what I'm seeking, that I'm seeking that type of experience where I can go and just relax for a week and catch up on the things that I've been wanting to read that I haven't gotten the chance to. Like that's to me, that's a vacation. And because of that, I can go to the same places over and over and I don't get sick of it. And Newport Beach is always like, it's kind of like home for me. It feels like home, so I'm always happy to go there. But even like Cabo, like I'm fine. Just I'll take a good book. I'll park it in front of the pool or the beach for a week. Just keep bringing the margaritas and the quesadillas, and I'm a happy guy. That's I'm kind of like Spokoli. Like all I need is a cool buzz and some tasty ways, and I'm fine. That's me.
yeah, man, I agree. I am also that way, but just in different places. You
Different
know,
places,
like
yeah, yeah.
because I yeah, I like to what I do actually now when I travel is, like, for example, I almost didn't go to the Amalfi Coast because I was like, that's a pretty romantic setting, you know?
Hmm.
Like Florence, Italy. I won't go to Florence. I will not go to Florence.
There's a proper circumstance you're waiting for.
Yes. Like
That makes
I
sense.
skipped I flew over France all the time. I never went to Paris. And then I did end up going to Paris for I took my ex there on her birthday, and that it just, there's certain places it's like I'm gonna need a somebody there, or I would like a somebody there. I don't need a somebody there. I would like to have a somebody there, and I'd like to experience that experience with them for the first time. But like when I went to Athens, for example, Athens is so cool, man. All the history that's there, the Acropolis, and in my thinking goes, well, if you meet someone, she's probably not gonna want to stop like every 3 seconds to read the history. And so you might as well do that one solo by yourself. Now, of course, I could potentially have met or meet someone who is into the history, but again, there's nothing like going to a place solo. And like you literally get to do everything that you want to do when you want to do it on your time. No one's telling you to get going here or there. And there are certain trips that I feel like I will be more situated to like surrender my trip for her. Like when I went to Paris, um, my ex wanted to go to this like, it was a very like influencer-esque type of Instagrammable restaurant. Now I hate these places, man. Because I like fine dining and luxury. And I know that anywhere Instagram people go, it's not fine dining and it's not luxury. It's just they make the plates look pretty so you post the picture. But okay, she wanted to go.
It's a
So
cheeseburger on a brioche bun.
yeah, this place was some type of dessert place, and I literally said to her, I was like, babe, I will take you like we can go to like 3 dessert places that are rated like 4 or 5 star and like 10x better than this place. But she was like, "No, babe, I want to go to this place." And I said, "What are you going to argue with that?" And you can't, right? So you're going to go, and then you're going to cover the exorbitant bill for the crappy food that they serve you. And at the end of this thing, I kept my mouth shut, all right. But the food sucked and the coffee was not good. Like the whole thing was a terrible experience for me. That's where I do get upset. Like when food or something is bad and I'm like, oh, and I just paid like, because it's an Instagrammable spot. So they jacked the bill up because they made a flower in your coffee or whatever, right? Like, so, so anyways, the bill comes and I was like, all right, like,
Begrudgingly.
and she looked at me though and she goes, babe, you were so right. Like this place sucked.
Oh,
And I was like,
oh,
oh, like, come on, man.
oh.
And I was like, yeah, anything for you though, like anything.
Yeah,
In
you're
my
right.
head though, it's like, I know I was right. I know
You
I told you this.
you said it best though. Like going into it, you knew in a sense you had to kind of just surrender. You kind of just had to go with the flow.
Yeah. Well, I said to myself, like jokingly in my head, I was like, man, this is why you save Paris for a girlfriend,
Mm,
because you're going to go see the tower and then you're going to go to these little places. They want to take the pictures.
yeah.
But like, man, when I went to Athens, let me tell you what I did in Athens, dude. I hit every historical spot. You know, I walked an hour and a half outside of Athens into like a town where no one spoke English. The menu came out to me, it was in Greek, and I didn't know, and I was like, what? I was trying to communicate with this shop owner, and they didn't know English, so I was just like, what's the best? Like, I don't know, right? And like they just brought me food, and it was the best freaking food ever. And so that's typically what I like to do,
Hmm.
is go in areas where there's no English, and like or know where I'm going because I've researched certain things that are really great, right? Or like even right now, Ryan, the hotel that I'm in is freaking magic. It's freaking epic. Um, like it's a spa slash hotel, and it's just an amazing experience. And there's no one telling me where to go or what to do, and I love that, man. I absolutely love that. And I won't come back to Malta, dude.
Yeah.
Like unless I'm really getting, I find someone she's like must go to Malta, then all right, but I'm hesitant with like as I continue to nix off countries off my list because I'm like avoiding certain countries right now. I know those are more coupley destinations. I came close with Amalfi Coast, but I did that one, and that was an amazing experience, dude. But Florence is the city that like I'd saved.
Mhm.
It's interesting though, yeah, for sure.
No, it makes sense, man. Well, about an hour and 40 minutes in, this is probably a good place to wrap this one up. Thank all of you guys who are still hanging out with us.
It was an interesting episode to say the least.
Yeah, we covered a
As
lot of good
always,
ground. It felt good.
yeah, covered everything, man. A little bit of everything. As always, drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Thoughts, questions, anything that comes to mind. Ryan and I always love reading through those comments, and then more importantly, just to see who got where is always great to understand that as well. So again, drop all your thoughts and questions down there in the comments. Thank you for keeping with us here in the deep end on the week to week and the minute by minute to the hour to hour. Until the next episode of the deep end, Ryan and I will catch you in the next one.